Hi everyone. Hello there. I hope I'm live. I think I'm live. I pressed a button and it tells me that I'm live. So if you can hear me, say hello. And if you can see me, say hello too. That would be lovely. My name's Hannah and I own Hanjan Crochet, which is a crochet design business, and I have a blog too. And I'm delighted to be here this afternoon, or lunchtime I know it is. Hello, Annie's. I am live. It works. Brilliant. Thank you. Yes, Annie's have invited me here today because I'm so happy to be working with them. I have some of my patterns on their site now. And they've asked me to show you a little tutorial about a stitch. So I have chosen the moss stitch, or some people call it the linen stitch. And if anyone knows me and anything about my designs over the last sort of 10 years or so, I very rarely use a stitch directory. I don't really own anything like that. I just make stuff up as I go along, and then I have to kind of reverse engineer it sometimes to work out what other people call the stitch. Hello from Ohio, hello. I have to work out what the stitch actually is called in other people's terms so that I can get people to understand it. But so basically the moss stitch uses a mesh, and you work stitches into that mesh, into 2 rows below that. That probably makes no sense, but hopefully I'm going to teach you how it does make sense and how it works. So there's 2 patterns on the Annie's site that use the moss stitch or linen stitch, my version of, and one of them is this barcode poncho, which adds it's an intermediate pattern, I think, because it uses front loops and back loops, and that gives just a bit of extra texture to the stitch. And the other one is this peaches and teal baby blanket, which uses it in the full stitch. I knew I'd do this, I knew I'd have it the wrong way up, sorry about that. It uses it in the full stitch. And you can see they're very similar, but the colour placements and the loops that you put them in makes it look very different. So, for everyone joining, hello, lots and lots of new people joining. Thank you for this, people are saying, no problem, my pleasure. I'm Hannah from Hanjan Crochet, and I'm really happy to be with you here. I'm going to talk about the moss stitch. Has anyone ever used the moss stitch before, or linen stitch? Which one do you call it? Let me know, let me know. Hello from Australia, my goodness, what time is it in Australia? I literally cannot do the maths for that. Okay, thank you. People are saying beautiful work, that's really kind, that's really kind. Also, the other question I wanted to ask is, does anyone have any sunshine? Because in the UK we have no sunshine yet. It's meant to be summer. Linen stitch, I'm being told. Other people haven't used it. Lisa hasn't used it. Patricia calls it the linen stitch. I think most people do call it the linen stitch. Moss stitch seems to be quite a new way of calling it. Oh, and Laura's never heard of either. So that's great. Perfect. Laura, I'm going to show you. This is the thing I'm most nervous about. I have to flip my phone and flip you over. So bear with me. I apologise if you land somewhere you're not meant to. And we will get to some crochet. 2 a.m. in Australia, goodness me, what are you doing up? So, I have 2 swatches here that I have made, and I wanted to show you that this is exactly the same pattern. Oh, loads of people have got sunshine, very hot. Please send it here. Lots of sunshine and heat in West Virginia. Oh, and Lisa's using it on a blanket now. Brilliant. I think it's a really versatile stitch. And I wanted to show you here the use of colour and how that can interplay. So you see the front and the back both have colour and both have texture. And this version has 1 row per colour worked. And this one has, ignore what I did at the bottom there, 2 rows per colour. And just look at the difference. Look how different those swatches are and how that looks like a completely different fabric. And that's just because of colour placement. So I would say when you're planning things, when you're stash busting or whatever you're doing with stripy things, think about where your colours are going to lie. Think about where you want them to be. Because I think this would look really nice in a rainbow or like an ombre effect, because it kind of steps down into it, doesn't it? Anyway, I will stop waffling now. And all of you people with lovely sunshine, goodness me. Let's get to some crochet, shall we? hello from Peru. So I thought, in order to show you kind of how it sits within this swatch, we need to do about 20 stitches, and these 20 stitches is actually quite a nice size for a little coaster, but you could extend it for a placemat, you could just massively extend it for a blanket, you can use it however you like. So to start with, you need to chain 21. I didn't think you'd want to watch me doing that. And then going into, I like to work in the back bumps of my chains. You need to do a single crochet, I'll talk in US terms, a single crochet into the back bump of each chain along. And that needs to repeat to the end of the row. But again, I figure you might not want to watch me do that either. So, hello from Wisconsin. Hello Janet, how are you? So I have gone ahead and finished that row of single crochet, and that's going to set us up. And again, I don't think this is the traditional way of working a moss or a linen stitch, but this is what I found worked really well for me. So once you've finished that row, you've turned and you're going to chain 1, and now we're going to do our setup row. And this setup row, we're just going to use half double crochets for it. So chain 1, and then we're going to work a half double crochet into that first stitch here. And then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to skip this next stitch because we want to create a void, we want to create a space ready for a stitch to, as you see here, drop down into it. So then we miss this, and then we work a half double crochet into the next one. So remember, all half double crochets in this first setup row. Chain 1 again, miss the next stitch, or skip the next stitch, depending. Does it frustrate anyone else, the difference between UK terms and US terms and the different ways that people say things in patterns? We're going to chain 1 again and skip 1, and then half double crochet in the next one. And so now we've done 4 half double crochets with a chain space in between. We're now ready to change up, and we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to skip 2, and that creates a bigger space for us for the next row, and then half double crochet in the next 2. Now the only piece of advice I would have here is, oh boy yeah, oh boy yeah, Gay is saying about the annoying US and UK terms. The only thing I would say here is, if you have fairly loose tension like I do, or can manage to do, you can just do 2 chains. If your tension is fairly tight for chains, give yourself an extra chain there, because otherwise it will pull your work in and you'll really struggle to block it. So where are we? We're going to now chain 2, we're going to skip 2, and then we're going to go back and we're going to mirror what we did at the beginning. We're going to do a half double crochet, a chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, and we just carry on doing that until we get to the last one. Chain 1, skip 1, and then a half double crochet in the last. Jenny has said different terms only get me when it's the identical term but different meaning. Oh my goodness, yes. It's so frustrating, isn't it, when you're not quite sure what it means. And Janet, she's asking if we go through both loops on the top. Yes, I am going through both loops. As I say, in my barcode poncho, I do slightly differently, but this is the standard way of doing it. So now we've got to the end of that row, and we are going to change yarn colour, and I always change on the last pass of the last stitch, just to give a nice neat finish. And the other great thing about moss and linen stitch, there's so many things that I wanted to say to you. The other great thing is that you can carry your yarns. You don't have any ends, no ends at all. If you're doing single colour rows, you carry your yarn in your rows because you won't see it. And if you're doing double rows, which I'll do here, you can just leave it hanging at the end of your row and it will be back there when you've done 2 passes. I hope that makes sense. So we're now ready with our next colour, and this is going to start our pattern for real. We're going to chain 1, and all of your rows now are going to be the height of a half double crochet. A half double crochet will be the height of your row, and that's what you're going to work. The first stitch and the last stitch will always be a half double crochet. And now we've come to this chain 1, which has made us a space, and we want to drop a double crochet down into this stitch, the stitch 2 rows below, always 2 rows below. So the way we do that is yarn over. We're going to work over the top of this chain 1, and we're going to encase it in the stitch. So you're going to pull up and complete your double crochet so that it then sits over the top of the 2. And then we are going to chain 1, you're going to skip the next stitch, and then you're going to drop down again. You've got a space, so you need to fill that space with a double crochet over the top of that chain 1. And you carry on following. You've almost got, as long as you get this first setup row right, you've got the blueprint now for how you need to carry on. You're going to chain 1, skip 1, and then you're going to drop this stitch down and encase that chain 1, doing a double crochet there. Again, chain 1, skip the next, and now we've got to where we have the 2 stitches. So we're going to work over the top, a double crochet there, and a double crochet in the next. And so you start to see this is how the pattern builds up. And now we've come to 2 stitches here, and so we're going to do 2 chains, and then we're going to work 2 double crochet in the stitches that you have left open there, over the top of the chains again. And you see how this is a really good stitch, I think, for working in front of the TV, in front of a box set, because once you've got that setup row right, you literally just follow whatever is underneath you. Chain 1 and then drop down into there, and then when we get to the end of this row there's some questions and I will answer them, but I am not a good multitasker, but crocheting, talking and reading is challenging for me. So then we need to half double crochet in that last stitch, and then you've completed that row, that first row there. So people are asking, what type of yarn am I using? This is Drops. It's cotton merino, and it's really lovely. It's really lovely. It's got this kind of cotton fleck in it, but it's really lovely and soft because it's got the merino. So we're now going to turn, and your next row is going to be a chain 1, and you're going to then, as I say, half double crochet into the first one for the beginning of the row, and then you have a stitch here, so we're going to chain 1 and skip that stitch, and then we're going to double crochet into the stitch 2 rows below. And you literally just work along, chaining and skipping and then dropping your stitches down and follow the pattern along. The great thing about this is you can make these, the pattern can be whatever you'd like it to be. You can have, in the barcode poncho, there's groups of 6. You skip 6 stitches, can't speak. And it creates such a lovely texture. You could probably make like almost like pixel art with it, couldn't you? So thank you for your lovely comments. I was so nervous about doing this. I still am really, but it's so lovely that you're so warm and welcoming. Thank you. And as you see, we just follow along with your double crochets, dropping down into 2 rows below. And then when we've completed this row, you're going to have set up your 2 row repeats that you're then going to use for the entire project, if you so wish. Chain 1, skip 1, into the next, chain one, skip one, and into the next. And then we've come to the end of the row, we chain one, we skip one, and then we half double crochet into the last one. But I'm going to change colour here. So I grab my yarn, and if you're, sorry I didn't do that very well, if you're going to carry your yarn up the side of your project, I always just make sure that it's got enough breathing space, because then when you block it, you need to, because that tension will be quite tight if you don't give yourself some space with it. They are quite easy to hide, I think, and definitely worth doing, so you don't have loads of ends to sew in. And also, if it's for a blanket and you're going to put a border around it, you definitely won't see it, will you? Oh, thank you everyone. Thank you Penny, thank you Monica. Everyone's saying that I'm doing well. That's really kind of you. So let's go again, and I will show you how we then finish off. So I'm going to do another row. This is going to now be a repeat of this first pink row that we did. You're going to drop your stitch down into anywhere that you've got a space for it. You're going to chain one and skip a stitch wherever you've got a stitch underneath you. That's the other thing with crochet, isn't it? If you try and explain something, if you weren't actually doing it and showing someone, it's so difficult to explain sometimes, isn't it? But actually when you do it in practice, and if you just show someone how something works, it just suddenly all makes sense, doesn't it? And then we drop this one down into here, and we've got the two. The other thing you could do with this stitch is change colours as you go along, but you could also change your stitch placement. Thank you for everyone being so kind. You can complete your colour, which I'll show you how to do on the next row, and then you could start differently. You could add a new stitch variation, a new pattern, which is kind of what I did in the peaches and teal blanket, and I added a solid section and then also a bit of a mesh section, so it had a good play with different fabrics. Now we're coming towards the end of this row, and then I will show you how to finish off. I hope this all makes sense to everyone. Let me know if it doesn't, and we can go over a piece. Oh, thank you Annie. And complete our row there. So then if we turn, I'm going to show you how we basically need to, on this last row, if you were to carry on making your chains, obviously then you'd have holes, but we need to basically fill in all of those holes to complete it. So it's fairly simple, and I reckon you'll probably guess how to do it before I show you. We chain one, and we always start with that half double crochet. And so because we want everything to be the height of a half double crochet for this row, we're now, any stitch that we've got, we're going to work a half double crochet into. And I've just seen, I do apologise for the light here, it's kind of a really weird dusky time over here, and I've got lights and all sorts, but it's just not helping, is it? I'm so sorry. And then we drop our stitch down. Angela has asked, how are you chain two sometimes on the row, then chain one? Do you mean as in, so sometimes I chain two because there are 2 stitches below to skip, and then sometimes I chain one just because there's 1 stitch below to skip. Is that what you're asking, Angela, I think? And then that creates the pattern for you. Oh, I'm sorry, comments are across my hands, I'm sorry. Let me chain one. No, there we are, that's put me off now. So undo that one. We're going to close and finish this. You're going to do a half double crochet there, and then you're going to drop down a double crochet here. And hopefully that makes sense there of how you work that last row. And you carry on. So I've done a few lives in the past before for various things, and they are so tricky because, so obviously I'm from the UK, and I generally do my tutorials in US terms, but that's kind of like not speaking another language, but I always think first of what the stitch is in UK terms, and then I change it to US terms. And then also it's like rubbing your tummy and patting your head, that kind of thing, isn't it? Because my hands are working, my brain's working. And so I promise I'm a much better crocheter than I am showing you right at this moment. Oh, Gaze used this stitch in a ripple stitch. Oh, that sounds amazing. I'd love to know how that was done. I suppose you just create an extra space, don't you? And then, yeah, oh, that's given me an idea. So this is how we complete your colour section. And then if you wanted to change the design completely, go to one row per colour. If you wanted to change your numbers, if you wanted to do just a traditional linen stitch of one chain one, skip one, chain one, skip one, then you could do that now. But if you wanted to add another colour in, say you wanted to add the bluey colour in, you could do that within the row, so then you would have one dropping down into this section here. You can really be adventurous with this, I think, and also you can make it unique, you can make it your own. It would be brilliant for stash busting, or it is brilliant for stash busting, and I think it's great. Like, it is a fairly dense stitch, but it depends, I think, on your choice of yarn and your choice of hook. And so, like with anything, I suppose, because actually it does have a fair amount of give in it, but if you perhaps worked it with a smaller hook and perhaps some cotton, it would make a really nice, pot holder or a pad, or, kitchen stuff. But then similarly, with a looser tension, it really makes lovely garments and baby blankets. Oh, thank you. Sandra says thank you for clear and concise directions. It's my pleasure. I'm so glad that people have seemed to be enjoying this, and I'm sorry that the comments were over the top, but hopefully that's given you a good idea. And if you'd like to check out my patterns, as I say, there's 2 of them that do use this type of stitch on the Annie's site, so do go and check those out. Janet's asking, what size of hook did I use? For this I'm using DK yarn, and it's a 4.5, so a G+. I tend to use a slightly bigger hook than most people, because I don't like tight tension. I don't know, I'm all about drape. I love good drape. Lisa is asking, will there be a recording of this pattern? Yes. I think this is going to stay on the Annie's site. We will clarify that afterwards. But yes, you can buy the patterns, and I do other tutorials too. So hopefully, if you've enjoyed that, I will be asked back again, because I've really enjoyed myself. Do come and find me and let me know if you've got any questions about my patterns, and I'd love to hear more from you. But thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry for being waffly, but I've had a lovely time, and I really hope you have too. Take care. Bye.